We have 11 states in the United States that have legalized euthanasia. I don't know how that sets with your listeners right now, or if we've got somebody that's ears are really tuned in now, but we have 11 states in the United States that has legalized euthanasia.
Revolution of common sense.
Revolution of common sense.
A revolution of common sense.
Truth was once common sense, but today, truth is uncommon. Explore biblical truths around faith, business, and politics with Peter Demas. Uncommon Sense in Current Times.
Hey folks, welcome to Uncommon Sense in Current Times. I am real excited to be here with Daniel Breeden. He is the executive director for the Tennessee Right to Life. I met Daniel through a friend of mine, and he says, the two of you got to meet, and we met and just hit it off. And when you think of right to life, you think of that, you think, we're talking about abortion, which is a big part. It's a large part of what the Tennessee Right to Life does. But we got talking about another piece of a conversation that I think is on the horizon. In some places is a lot closer than where it is in others, that I think it's extraordinarily important to talk about. So I want to address that. But Daniel, I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor and a privilege, Peter. It's been an absolute delight meeting you and learning more about you and your passion, not just for right to life issues, but your passion for God. I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for being a business owner in Tennessee that believes in the truth.
Well, I appreciate that. So just as a summary, Tennessee Right to Life, kind of give me a summary of kind of what it does, and then I want to kind of take it into a different topic realm of it.
Absolutely. So, Tennessee Right to Life, as many of the listeners may know, Tennessee Right to Life is, our lane is what we call it, is more of the legislative, looking at the laws, making sure that we're protecting, and making sure that when laws change or there's things introduced into the law, that we're staying on top of that, that we, our full-time lobbyist that is working directly with those at the Capitol is doing a tremendous job. And we want to make sure that we're holding up the pieces and the support system in Tennessee that makes us the pro-life state that we are. So that's the number one thing that we do at Tennessee Right to Life, is really concentrating on that legislative piece and the laws. And then beyond that, we're not just concerned about the law and the law being something that supports the baby or the disabled person or the person that is dealing with the end of life issues that you've already touched on with euthanasia, but making sure that we're a support system for that as well, educating people around the state, chapters in as many counties as we possibly can, that are educating people in that grassroots effort to get the word out of things that are going on, not just in our state, but nationally. And then utilizing our Choose Life plate is another piece of this, kind of the connective piece from laws, legislation, and then connecting to our pregnancy resources centers throughout the state, and getting them the funds that they need to care for the moms, the dads, the families that are choosing life because of the laws that are in place here in Tennessee. So both sides and a lot of things in the middle are just as important, and we want to be a piece of the complete circle of life here in Tennessee.
So after the Dobbs decision, obviously issues concerning abortion went to states. There were some states that probably even went much further than where it was allowed, and then there's other states that, such as Tennessee, where they have pretty much just banned any incidents of it almost at all. But the issue too that you're dealing with, and you mentioned it, was talking about euthanasia. I mean, we hear about it in Canada, and in Sweden, in different areas, that's like that. But I was shocked to hear that that is a problem in the United States. It seems to be silent, where abortion is very loud. Euthanasia seems silent on it. Tell me, I mean, is this a real problem for us now, or is this just a problem that's on the horizon?
I would actually go, Peter, a step further and say there's not only a problem for us now, it's something that is quickly slipping out of control, even here in the United States. Giving you just we talk about, we hear things that are happening overseas, and well, that surely can be happening here in the United States. We have 11 states in the United States that have legalized euthanasia. I don't know how that sets with your listeners right now, or if we've got somebody that's ears are really tuned in now, but we have 11 states in the United States that has legalized euthanasia. And just a really quick couple of stats from across these are things that has even happened since our most recent conversation that is in this. So Canada, you already mentioned Canada. Advocacy groups are calling for MAiD, which is what they call medical assistance in dying, eligibility in Canada to include children as young as 12 years old. That's what they are calling for in Canada right now. This proposal is weakening or removing parental consent requirements for
Oh,
16 to
wow.
17-year-olds. So no longer are we saying the parental consent of those that are 18 to 21. Now we're going to move that down to say that no parental consent requirements for those that are 16 to 17 years old. The MAiD program is growing quickly since its inception in 2016, when that was just supposed to be for the terminally adult eligible client. Now we're slipping from that all the way back to a 12-year-old being considered for this MAiD program in Canada. Quebec, which is obviously in Canada, has taken it a step further. 7.9% of all the deaths in Quebec are attributed to this MAiD program, of all the deaths that are happening. 13.4% in one region of Quebec. 50% of those who received MAiD in Quebec reported feeling a burden to family, friends, and caregivers, and 24% cited loneliness and isolation. So this is not people that have a terminal diagnosis. These are people that are struggling mentally. These are people that are going through something that we should be able to reach out and take care of. We're at 4.7 of all deaths in Quebec right now are attributed to the MAiD program. It's 1 in 20 people that are dying in Quebec.
Now, here in the United States, 11 states, that's 20%. I mean,
That's right.
that's a huge number. So 20% of the states have some level of it. Are any of those states at that point of, I just feel bad and I wanna take my life, and and I can't do suicide, but I can definitely get the state to sponsor my suicide and do it that way. Are any of those states at that extreme yet as Quebec or other parts of Canada?
So it's again that slippery slope that we're on, Peter, that you know so well of what we've discussed previously and where we're at today. It's pushing the next thing. It's what is the next part. So Illinois has passed State Bill 1950 by a narrow margin in a veto session. This bill gutted a and replaced a food safety bill in Illinois. So they gutted a food safety bill and are utilizing the money that was supposed to go towards a food safety bill in Illinois and are now state sponsoring euthanasia in Illinois, right here in our own country. The legislation endangers the elderly, those with disabilities, and individuals struggling with depression or terminal illness. It's not just any more of a diagnosis that has to meet the criteria of someone that has a life-altering, soon to be life-ending thing. We're now looking at patients that are coming in states like Illinois, where the state is willing to fund their death but not willing to fund palliative care that we talk about all the time and has become a very large topic in our country for mental health issues. Mental health issues is one of the biggest things that is talked about on social media, on media in general, but we're pulling funds away from that and state financing euthanasia.
Okay, So just to tie in kind of the from the abortion angle, they said we're going to make it states' rights. Then the FDA passes and says, well, we're going to allow the generic form of the abortion pill.
Yep.
You don't have to have medical care on it. And so now, if I wanted to, I could order those pills, slip it into my wife's beverage or mistress's beverage because I don't want my wife to find out, that type. So I can do all that stuff right now. It feels like we're not too far off from being able to do that. So I can contact Illinois and or drive up to Illinois. There has to be some level of protections for people somewhere like this. This blows my mind that in this country, but when no one's talking about it either.
Right.
So, like, we you can't even say the word suicide on TV without the suicide prevention hotline showing up at the end and somebody saying something about it. But now the state's saying, "Well, it's okay as long as you come through us." Like, am I seeing that clearly? Because that's the way I'm hearing this.
Absolutely, and I told you before we jumped on this podcast, that's something that is very concerning to me that's bigger than even what with the statistics and all these things that we're talking about, and it's even bigger than this is what really, really concerns me. And Peter, it's we're seeing, groups like Planned Parenthood that are fine with, that have adopted the word recruiting women in the state of Tennessee in order to send them across state line to places like Illinois and all the places that we hear about that still has legalized surgical abortions, but using a word like recruiting women here in our state, and paying to send them across, paying for their stay, paying for their abortion, paying for their transportation. We're seeing that right here in the state of Tennessee that lines up and kind of, right along with the abortion pill that's still flooding our state, as you alluded to. We are n we are a state that claims that abortion is illegal here in the state of Tennessee, but sir, it is not.
But to carry it to the euthanasia side, that doesn't seem to be that much of a stretch now to do the exact same thing on it from that aspect of it. I've lost a really close friend of mine to suicide about a year ago, and in my business, we've dealt with this issue many times. We've dealt with the issue of employees who have started to go down that path. That we have chaplains to help in those areas, and we have policies set in place for when we hear it, what we have to do as a business. We do all of these steps in order to give people or to find people that help. But it seems like if these states out there are passing it, 20% of this nation is saying that we can do something medically assisted suicide, taking of life, and it's a legitimate taking of life,
Right.
then it doesn't seem like it's that difficult for anybody to be able to go out and do it now with the state saying it's okay. Because of whatever disability you say you might have.
Yeah, it's a Peter, is I know we agree on this, but it's a heart issue. It's a heart issue across our nation that we're seeing, something that keeps getting pushed a little bit further, and they say, okay, well, what is the reaction to that? When are the people of God going to stand up against this? Where is the outcry across our nation when these topics are brought up? You said that you said it exactly spot on. What is going on with euthanasia across our country, the same thing can be applied in this abortion atmosphere as well, because we're seeing our Human Life Protection Act being attacked right here in our state of Tennessee, where we claim to be pro life and we have a legislation that claims to be pro life. But the Human Life Protection Act, all these pieces and parts that's been put together for so many years to protect both the mom and the baby medically, if there are things that need to be looked at that, with a mom who is pregnant. But now what is being attacked in the Human Life Protection Act, when it comes to abortion, is the mental health of the mom. So that's the leg that we want to pull out from under that, to say that we're going to base aborting a child on the mental health capacity of the mom. So it's becoming something that is very quickly spiraling out of control. The euthanasia issue is definitely something that we need to be taking a look at as the people of God, as the people that are concerned about life across this nation.
But when we talk about mental health, you know, we're talking about, I mean, that's such a range of topics.
Yeah.
There is, mental health, which again, I'm not an advocate of euthanasia or anything, but we're talking, in any form or fashion, or abortion, with mental health. But it can range from everything from an extreme bipolar schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder, all the way up to I'm stressed and I don't know
Mhm.
how to handle it. And that way I have to have, my dog every time I go anywhere, because I can't handle it without that. And there are a lot of people out there that have legitimate medical reasons to have dogs. I'm
Mhm.
not
Absolutely.
don't get angry with me on that one.
Mhm.
I know people that do. So, but there are also people I know that out there that use it, for that purpose. Where are we finding this? Because if we can use mental health to justify an abortion, we could use mental health to justify euthanasia. Like, who's defining mental health? Is that the legislature?
It's a really good point, Peter. And that's probably, again, I'm concerned about something far greater than this, but that is one of the biggest concerns, is that when you see these laws go into effect, and we go all the way back to 2016 in Canada, there was a very strategic piece put on the mental health part of that. A group of doctors, people being involved. There was a lot of attention given to that, making sure that if the person was 16, 17, 18 years old, that the mental acuity test and all those things were being done. And then you begin to see that now we've pulled that back to such a place that we have a team of doctors determining the maturity level of a 12-year-old to sign them up for euthanasia. So when we say that we are a country that cares about someone's mental health, and you said it, there's a lot of things that is a piece of that, that you can list the whole, a long range of things. But when we start to make a determination to take someone's life based upon that they're depressed or that they're going through something or that they lost a friend, all the things that come along with that, and the choice becomes euthanasia instead of the choice becoming we're going to reach out to them through our health, through the nurses and doctors and psychologists and all the things that we have. We're going to reach out to them from the church of God around this nation, but we make the choice to sit back and say we're going to be silent and watch 12-year-old children around this nation become under the care of doctors who are determining if they're mature enough to make the decision to say they want to be signed up for euthanasia.
All right, so I'm a doctor, and I'm doing this for money purposes. When it comes to I want to abuse and mutilate children for, because we say they're mature enough to decide what gender they are,
Right.
before they even know what gender means. But there's an ongoing care. There's ongoing that, so there that is a money stream. But if I want to kill somebody, I don't get they don't come back. Like,
That's
you
right.
know, so
That's
that if
right.
a 12-year-old, 16-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever it is, and they say, "You know what, again, I have these mental health issues," the doctor signs off on it. I may make a few bucks at the moment, but it's not like they can even come back and write a good social media review on you saying, "Hey, this person signs off on things really easy. I
Right.
recommend them for after you die." I mean, you know what I'm saying? What is the purpose? Why do they wanna do that? I mean, obviously, they're forgetting their Hippocratic Oath, but I think we've long passed that.
Right.
So, why do we think we're at that stage now? Why do you think they wanna do that?
I'm going to give you an answer, Peter, that's probably far more personal, probably far more of my own theory or my own personal opinion. But I believe that there's a satisfaction, having to satisfy the culture of death in our nation and around the world. As we see that the Dobbs decision came out, overturned Roe v. Wade, now surgical abortions and things start to decrease across the states that took it upon themselves to take that. Now we see a rise in Satan going underground with the abortion pill across our nation. So we celebrate as people of God, we celebrate the Dobbs decision happening, and it was great and it was awesome. But then we see Satan going underground as we're celebrating and kind of taking a breath and feeling like we've won. And I would say that the same thing applies to the euthanasia. It's a satisfaction of the death culture in our nation. We see that abortions, the surgical abortions dropping. We see euthanasia on the rise across our states. So what is the end result of that? I think it's again, it's a heart issue, it's a church issue, it's the people of God issue that we're setting and we're allowing things like this to happen without rising up and taking a stand in our nation and to say what takes somebody to the extent of becoming that person that's okay with taking someone's life, that's okay with not seeing that follow-up, as you just mentioned, like, "Hey, great care. This doctor did a great service for me." You're not gonna get that. I talked to a doctor that works with us now that was involved in the abortion industry before, and he tells me, "I sat for 50 years delivering babies while babies were being aborted right down the hall, and I sat and did nothing." And he's dealing with that now in himself and having to ask for God to forgive him for that and saying, I don't understand how we can get to that point where we're so calloused that we hear these things and we don't do anything about it.
So there is a level, though, of care when it comes to, elderly people at the end of their life. Hospice
Absolutely.
is the great example of that. There is a level of helping them become comfortable or withdrawing, taking them off of a machine or whatever it is as they're nearing the end of life. Then we move to, the next step of, okay, we're gonna withhold, unnecessary medications or necessary medications, then we're gonna withhold unnecessary medications as we move forward. But what point but then it becomes, again, we're actively seeking it because they're maybe inconvenient or they may be too expensive, something of that nature. Where do we as Christians, where do we stand in this, to say, this is God's decision to keep you alive, or I'm making the decision, not God's decision to keep you alive. I'm making the decision to keep you alive, by forcing you to stay on something, versus, this is not my decision to kill you off. Like, there seems to be the idea of I am God on both sides of this coin, and we have to find this road in the middle. Where do you think that road is?
Yeah, so Peter, again, I think we agree on this. If Satan come out with his horns and his pitchfork and with a sign that said, I want to kill your 12-year-old child, I want your 12-year-old child to sign up for euthanasia, I think the church as a whole would rise up and say, that's Satan coming against us and against the children of our nation. My beautiful wife works for hospice care, and she, I believe, I consider her an expert in hospice care. And if we go from one side of the spectrum, which is those that are dealing with the end of life issues where hospice is coming in and they're trying their best to keep them comfortable and they're trying their best to work with their family, work with the mental health side of that, work with the physical issues, work with making sure that things are all set up and in motion as this person is going to take their natural last breath, the natural God-given last breath. And then we go to the other side of the spectrum that we're signing 12-year-old children up to be euthanized across this nation, and then we say, where is the middle of the road at on that? Where is it that we say we've accepted the taste for, as Christians, we've accepted the taste for, yes, we believe in hospice care that you should keep the patient comfortable and all those things. That's a taste that's okay in our mouth. But where does the taste change in our mouth where we say enough is enough? We've got to draw the line in the sand here somewhere and say, this is not care. This is not health care. What is being deemed as healthcare in many of our states in the United States is not healthcare, it's death. It's destruction. And we know the verse that says Satan comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but God comes that we would have life and that we would have life more abundantly. And where do we stand at on that? It's to fight for life, for every breath that the person can breathe and the care that we're going to give them. That's what we're called to do.
But, I mean, and we saw this with abortion even before Roe v. Wade, when it was kind of, again, at some states were allowing it in order before it even got to the Supreme Court, and it was, I forgot the phrase they used. It had to be safe, and
Mm,
they use that phrase, and Christians sat silently by. And then I think so many of them, once they realized, hey, it's moving pretty far in this direction, which I would argue that many Christians started speaking up about it, about where we are right now with euthanasia. It's spreading. It's kind of silent. We're not really talking about it. So some of them started speaking up, and then it just kind of blew up. But by then we were already behind the eight ball because we didn't speak up.
right.
We've talked before the show about Ezekiel being watchman on the wall and not speaking up. As Christians, we have a duty with euthanasia, with abortion. But again, I think with abortion now, I think we do speak out a little bit more. Whether or not we do everything we need to do, I don't agree with that. I don't think we do that well. But with euthanasia, again, most people aren't even aware it exists. So, like, the here, I mean, we again, far away, maybe. What do we need to do now? How do we need to speak up? What do we need to do to get involved? Because, yeah, sitting silently by, waiting another 20 years to say, "Hey, wait a second, this is a problem. In 20 years, I'll be a candidate for it." I
Right.
don't, I don't want my children to do that. And honestly, I've, living through the teen years, there would be moments where I probably would have put them up before, during moments of their teen years, that I would have been like, "Hey, this is a better option than living with me." But I don't want to be in that situation 20 years from now. So what do we say as Christians? How do we get involved? How do we start responding to this now before it becomes 1990 abortion rights when it comes to euthanasia?
Peter, I said at the beginning of the show, and I said when we talked before, I told you that there was something that concerns me more than any statistic that we've shared, more than any concern around the states, 11 states in our nation that is legalized, more than abortion, more than all those things. There's something that concerns me more than anything that we have said so far, and it's just what you alluded to. What concerns me the most about this topic, abortion, end of life, all of these things, it's not the people that are listening to the show that disagree with us, that's gonna put the bad comment when we post it on social media, that's gonna say, "We don't know," that's gonna say, "I missed the statistic, and I probably did. I was probably off a point percent somewhere. Somebody's gonna find different information." We know that. I'm not concerned about that at all. I'll tell you what I'm concerned about more than anything. It's the people listening to this podcast that agree with us. That's what I'm concerned about because we have become accustomed to the person sitting in the pew in the church, the person driving down the road on our way to work, listening to this podcast, and we hear this and we go, you know what? That's really bad. That's terrible. I hate that. I think it's really bad that they're wanting to euthanize 12-year-old children somewhere, anywhere in the world. I think it's terrible that 11 states in the United States have legalized euthanasia, that we're still struggling with this abortion pill. What concerns me is the person listening, sitting in the church, the pastors, the preachers, the priest, everyone that is involved in this movement that listens to this podcast, agrees with what we're saying. The podcast comes to an end and we do nothing. That's what concerns me the most. The people of God, the people of this nation, the people sitting in the pews of the church, the people going back and forth to work every day. There are so many things we can do. And Peter, you said, what can we do right now? I'm going to tell you what we can do right now. This is what God has laid on my heart. It's what's burning inside of me right now more than anything. Is you might say, well, I have 5 kids, 7 horses, 3 dogs. I have all these things. I got all these responsibilities, Daniel, in my life. Peter, Daniel, I don't know what you got. How can I do anything else? I'm going to tell you the most powerful thing you can do that's beyond joining Tennessee Right to Life or joining a pro-life organization, all the things that I'm going to tell you the most important thing to do, and it's fast. Combine your prayers with fasting. If you will combine your prayers with fasting around this nation, and you will fast with us, with Tennessee Right to Life, with myself, with me and Peter together, we're going to see some things change in this nation that we could have never dreamed, that we could have never prayed hard enough for when we fast and pray together. I believe that is what's going to usher in the change and the next great awakening in this country.
I think a lot of people, and we are at the end of time, but I do want to touch on that real quick because I think a lot of people kind of dismiss the idea of fasting. They see it as maybe something that was back in the day. I read about it a little bit in the New Testament and of maybe the first church. I don't think they recognize there is a power involved in fasting, even if it's just for a day,
Right.
and to set up regularly scheduled fast during certain points in time. And this is not for people that medically cannot go without eating. Like,
Absolutely.
do not make certain put yourself in a hospital for it. But there are certain things that I think you can do that we can give up. Why is fasting, do you think, so critical and important to our spiritual life on this?
Yeah, so these topics that we're discussing here on this podcast are heavy. There's so many tentacles that are involved in that go all throughout our country, our nation. And there's a specific thing in the Bible, if you're a Bible believing person, that I want to point out to you today. The Bible says that some things aren't going to change just by praying. And that may be a shocker to some people. Say, oh my gosh, you don't believe in praying changes everything? The Bible clearly says some things are only going to change, and this is Daniel's version that I'm giving you, but some things are only going to change by the combination of fasting and praying together. This is the words that were spoken by Jesus Christ himself. And if we're not at the point in our nation today in Tennessee, you're on the listening to this podcast of saying, if they're saying that they're considering euthanizing 12-year-old children. We're seeing children being mutilated in our own country. 11 states have if it's not if the time is not now for us to
Right.
fast and pray together, when is it ever going to be? The time to fast and pray, the time to come together in unity from all denominations, from all backgrounds, from all people groups, from all organizations. Lay aside the things that separate us and let's agree on one thing, and that's the power of fasting and praying together in unity around this nation.
I agree completely with you. I think that too often we dismiss the spiritual disciplines as religious rules, and then we hide behind a quote that really wasn't quoted by Saint Francis Assisi, which irritates me whenever people quote it because it's really not him, which says, preach the gospel at all times and when necessary, use words. And I'm always like, when is it necessary? What point in time does it become necessary in your world? And I think you summed it up correctly. When they're mutilating our children, I think we've moved past the necessary part. I think
Absolutely.
necessary went back a long, long time ago,
Yes, sir.
and it's things that we have to do. So I agree. We have to deal with this in a spiritual realm, and we have to deal with it in the physical realm as well. Again, and some people can't. They don't have the time. They don't have the resources. They don't have that. But
That's
for
right.
those that do, and they want to support, Tennessee Right to Life, where can they go to find out more about this, and to help support your organization as well?
Absolutely. So our website, tnrtl.org, is a great place to start. We're going through a transformation of our website and social media right now. So as you log into there, you're going to see a lot of changes that are happening over the next 30 to 60 days. But the changes that are happening is the changes that mobilize us into being that unified force across Tennessee and across our nation. So that's a good place to start. You can reach out to me. I would love to talk to you. We have great people working at our state offices. And you may say, well, Nashville is a long ways away from me. That's a long, that's a 2-hour drive from me. Here's what I promise you. I promise you we have a local chapter that's within a 30-minute drive of your area. So if you want to get involved, I would love to see you have the chance to get involved at your grassroots level, in your communities. This is not about all about Nashville and joining the state office and coming and support. It's not Daniel Breeden show. This is not none of that. This is about seeing the grassroots effort across the state of Tennessee as chapters are rising up. If we don't have a chapter in the county that you're from, I would absolutely love to talk to you about starting a chapter in your county, because that's the most important piece of this is the unity across the counties, unity across the state. So would love to speak with you, love to talk to you, love to come speak at your church or organization about these things that we're talking about today.
And if you're not in Tennessee, I'm assuming there's other organizations that's very similar that Google can help find in the other states along these lines that can deal with the issues of abortion, but also with the issues of the end of life, with euthanasia as well. I guess abortion's end of life too, just before it
Mm. Yeah.
not really before it begins, because it begins at conception. So, boy, I about to went down a rabbit hole there. So,
Maybe.
but anyway, I appreciate Daniel you coming on and talking about this because I think it's necessary that we start talking about it now. And for those of you who are listening in those states, you look it up, see if you're one of the 11 states, because so much of this has gone by silently, and it's important that we get involved in this process. So, Daniel, thank you again so much. God bless you and your ministry. I appreciate you being on this show.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you for being a partner in life. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.